Well, let's go ahead and get started here. Good to see all of you. Sounds like there's already some familiarity with the program that a number of you already have, which is great, but we are here to talk about the Critical Language Scholarship. I'm Matt Kleppenstein. I'm a National Fellowships Coordinator for National Fellowships and Scholar Programs here. I work mostly with graduate students, but I'm also joined by a number of my colleagues here, Taylor Navinet, Jen Bess, Ken Cortale, and Ethan Knight. So we have a lot of people here who can weigh in with their expertise and experience, help you answer some questions. And so we're going to take a little time to talk about the program, give you some details about how it works, some information about the experiences you can expect to gain from participating in it, and also give you some idea about what the application process is going to look like, and giving you some next steps for what you need to do to apply for it. And of course, we'll have plenty of time for any questions that you might have about this. So if you're just learning about this program for the first time, the Critical Language Scholarship is a summer study abroad language learning program that involves being placed in different locations in the countries that have the languages that we'll go over in a minute here. Generally, they run 8 to 10 weeks. These are open to US students in all fields and all disciplines to study languages that have been designated critical by the State Departments. We'll go over the list of those languages in a moment here. And it's a group-based language learning program. So you will be part of a cohort of other students from different institutions in the United States who will be learning the same language, different backgrounds, different levels, in some cases there, and also taking part in cultural immersion activities as well too. This is a program that's through the State Department, so it's funded by the US government. And a quick disclaimer here right now, CLS is saying that they are reserving the right to offer programs virtually depending on pandemic conditions for the next year. It is their hope and ours that everything will be in person. But as you can imagine, with a program that involves arranging travel to a lot of different countries where the public health situations are going to be different, where the requirements about travel and so forth are going to vary, that there's potentially going to be some need to make some changes there. So at the moment, they are not just saying that these programs are going to be virtual, but there is the possibility as situations evolve. Who knows what exactly is going to be going on next summer there. So I just leave that for you as well too, to keep in mind. Just very quickly in terms of eligibility, just to make sure that everybody here is able to apply for it. This is a program that is only available to US citizens or nationals at the time of the application, with the deadline that will be up in November here. And you need to be enrolled in either undergraduate or graduate program at the time of your application here in the fall, and you have to complete your semester requirements as well too with the passing GPA. So if you had to withdraw for some reason, then you wouldn't be eligible for next summer. But it does mean that if you were to graduate in May and weren't currently enrolled at that moment, you would still be able to participate because you were enrolled as a student in the fall. If you were a current senior right now thinking about possibly doing this over the summer. So if you have any questions about eligibility, we can talk about that later, but just want to make sure that everybody is aware of whether or not you're going to be able to apply for this particular program. So the focus, as the name suggests, is on languages that are less commonly taught and studied on US campuses and that have been deemed by the government as critical to US national security and economic prosperity, and that are seen as important for developing citizens who are able to participate in more globalized world. So that's why the government wants to spend money on all of you potentially to study these kind of different languages there. And so as you're thinking about applying for this, we'll talk about applications and things there. It's always good to know what the purpose of the program is, so you can kind of keep that in mind as you're explaining what you think the benefits of studying this language might be for you. But that's sort of the impetus behind what this program offers. These are the languages that are eligible here. And you can see they're organized into different categories. in terms of level of experience one needs to have in the language. A number of these languages do not require any prior experience, so you can be a total beginner. And if you're interested in them and you can make a good case for why you should be learning that for your future studies or professional career or goals, then you are eligible to apply for that. A smaller group requires some previous study, 1 year of study, or 2 years of study in the case of Chinese or Japanese. And that is by the time you begin the program. So if you're just starting, your second year, your third semester of Japanese right now in the fall, but you're planning to take it again in the spring, you'll be eligible to apply for it now. And this kind of comes with a little bit of a caveat as well too, because from CLS's perspective, this is mostly about making sure that you will be able to be placed in the appropriate language level. And different programs are set up to cater to more or less advanced speakers there. So there is some elements of self-evaluation. You do not have to submit a language evaluation that says that you have been certified at a certain level there. So for example, if you happen to be a heritage speaker of a language or have some prior experience, or maybe you studied it in an informal situation where you weren't taking it for college credits, that can kind of count towards some of that as well too. So there is an element of self-evaluation that's going on here. So it doesn't necessarily mean, for example, that if you want to study Portuguese, that you have to have 6 university level credits of Portuguese. Again, the concern here is more that you would be able to be placed in a language class and be able to understand and keep up there. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, this probably isn't a very relevant question, but did these languages change recently? Like, is this list different than it was in the past, or is this pretty much the same?
Not as far as I know.
This is the same list as
Same one. Okay.
the level has shifted a little bit for a couple. Portuguese was the most recent addition about 2 or 3 years ago, and Swahili was added a couple years before that. But the rest of them have been the same languages. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about this? This is obviously a very important thing here in terms of the languages you're going to apply for. So, yeah.
So on your application, like you'll evaluate the usefulness of the language in your future career as like part of your evaluation for whether you get scholarship or not.
Well, there's a statement of purpose. We'll go over this a little bit later. There are several short essays that go into the application. One of them, the statement of purpose, is where you're going to kind of talk about why learning this language plays some role into your path going forward. And that can look like a number of different things there, but that is one of the things that CLS is interested in. You have some interest and commitment to continuing to learn the language, to use it in some setting, academically, professionally, whatever that might look like after you've done that. So you'll be making a case as to why they should invest in you specifically to learn this language there. So we'll go over what those prompts are, but yeah, that is kind of part of that. Other questions about the eligible languages or about the levels for them here before we shift to the next portion? All right. Oh yeah, sure.
Sorry, one more question.
That's fine.
Do any of these languages have like more slots than others, so to speak?
I am not sure. Do we have numbers on this?
So I don't know hard numbers. Usually what you can do is on the website, you can tell a little bit based on how many locations they support. So for example, Chinese will often have like 5 different locations that they're offering Chinese. Azerbaijani has 1. So you can kind of gauge it that way, but it's typically related to how like the percentage of applicants that they get for that specific language. But I think they already have in mind how big they want that program to be. So they're kind of looking at the trends in terms of the interest. Portuguese has proven really popular recently because it's new and they don't have a lot of spaces for those yet. I think they're still growing the program. But I don't think CLS shares with us or on the website exactly like there are 10 spots for this language and 20 spots for this one. It's mostly just looking at how many sites. They usually have a group of, I don't even know, 15 to 20 per site, maybe. And I don't know if that changed based on them going virtual either. Like I don't know if that helped or hurt the numbers.
Yeah.
The
It can be an independent study. You don't actually have to demonstrate a certain level of proficiency, like have a formal language evaluation done. So in that case, if you have studied a language, like then it wasn't for credit or for some other sort of program, and you feel like the level you've achieved is the equivalent to a year of academic study, then as long as you can kind of make that case in your application. Again, the big thing here is that they want to make sure that you have at least enough experience to be able to participate in the particular program that you're going to. And so for some of the ones that require at least some study there, the program of instruction that you'll be offered is going to assume at least a basic level there. And so they don't want to put someone in there who's not going to be able to keep up. So it's more kind of a self-evaluation in some ways. The easiest way to demonstrate that is to have like the credit on like a transcript there, but yeah.
I'll just say that there usually is space in the application for you to really detail out how you have used or learned that language, whatever it is. So it's like or equivalent for these. And also, so long as you demonstrate that you have the equivalent of that in the application, if you get CLS, everyone who goes on CLS takes an initial exam to test your language level so that they place you in the right group with the cohort. So that is the point where you have to prove the ultimate proficiency, but up until that point, it's just you sharing how you have studied it. But they do, because CLS definitely recognizes all these different ways that you can have language skills, they ask questions like, you know, are you a heritage speaker? Or like, have you taken classes formally, or have you done tutoring, or have you watched movies, or like, so there's space to really talk about that.
Yeah.
So what you were saying earlier about how once you get into the program, you're going to be tested. So let's say I was going in for Mandarin Chinese, and then they decided that, oh, I'm not advanced enough. Would they be able to take that away, or would I just have to put in more effort to study?
I don't think they take it away. I think that they're trying to figure out, they're not going to pick with the most advanced students of the cohort. It might also be a question of with Chinese, like which cohort are you in? Like there might be one that they set to be kind of lower than others. So I don't think that once they offer it, then they're like, just kidding, you don't know this language. But don't lie, right? Like I think that they reserve the right to do that, probably. I still think that they do.
Okay.
And just to clarify that point there as well, there will be different levels within the cohort. So it's not as if everybody is going in at whatever second year Japanese level who's doing that. There will be more advanced speakers, people with, you know, maybe many years of experience there who are at a pretty high level, and they will arrange instruction based on those kind of levels there. So this is just like the minimum threshold for getting in. It doesn't mean that everyone who is going to be part of your program is going to be in the exact same spot, and that's fine. Other questions about this? Well, let's move on and we can circle back if anybody has some other things there. So what does this actually include in terms of what are you getting? Assuming that everything is on-site, in person, they will pay for travel for a mandatory orientation in Washington, D.C. So that is an important thing. They will announce a certain orientation. You're expected to be there as a condition to participating in the program before you actually begin, as well as paying for the international airfare for whatever your program location site is, any sort of applicable visa fees, if that is something that you will need to enter the country of where you're going to be studying your language, and then for your fees and general living expenses while you're there. So this is a scholarship that's meant to provide kind of a basic sustenance for what you're going to have there. You're not getting you're not like working a job and getting like a salary of any kind. You're there to study a language. It's sort of your full-time activity there, but it's meant to meet all of your basic needs there. And as I mentioned before, part of what CLS is, in addition to language study, there's cultural programming, group trips and things to help immerse you in the place where you are as well too. And those are things that will be arranged by the program, and that's included, the cost of that is included in what you're getting as well too. You will also have the opportunity to earn academic credit here. It's through a program that's set up with Bryn Mawr College. So they will issue a transcript for you based on the language learning you've done. The program is meant to provide the equivalent of an academic year's worth of study. So that's sort of what the model is in these 8 to 10 week intensive programs. And that is something that you can then use. You'll have that transcript there as well. It's a little more complicated if you want to use the academic credit towards your degree here. Then you have to apply through the Education Abroad office. And then there's a fee that's associated with that if you actually want that those credits to count towards your progress to degree here. In our experience, that's somewhat unusual, but that is something to consider if you actually want that to appear on your University of South Carolina transcript, as opposed to having a transcript from another institution that demonstrates that kind of credit there. So if that is your situation, just reach out to us and we can kind of give you more details about what that process is going to look like there. But just to flag that for you at this point as well. Yeah.
You have to know what that date is.
We were trying to find it yesterday. We think it might be early March.
I'm gonna ballpark it at March 1st. You need to check with the Education Abroad office. It's because I can't remember how they classify CLS in terms of their programs, if it's a direct enroll or an exchange or whatever. Their deadlines are slightly different, but it tends to be about March 1st.
Okay.
This is why we're happy to help you navigate, because if you want the situation, the timelines don't align very well at all. Like, you're not gonna know CLS results by the time that deadline is. So we'll help you work with the Education Abroad office. But as Matt mentioned, I think most students who do CLS do it for the experience and the language learning. It's not that common for students to transfer the credits back onto their USC transcript. You'll always have the Bryn Mawr transcript that shows that you earned the credits. But we're happy to help navigate that.
Thank
And I'm not trying to usurp Matt's presentation.
No, it's not. We're all
Advising on CLS.
we're all here to share about
I'm
this.
historical institutional knowledge.
Are there other questions about what you're getting? I'll just add that since the program was virtual last year, I don't know what they're planning to do if they do offer a virtual component this year, but the way that it worked virtually is that they provided $1,000 stipend to purchase any kind of equipment that you might need to be able to participate. And then beyond that, if you didn't need that, you could just kind of keep it as your scholarship for having participated. And then they included the cost of any kind of language, like textbooks and any other sort of instructional materials. So that's what it looked like for students who participated in the virtual institute. Again, CLS has not shared with us the details of what that would look like if they were forced to offer that, some of their programs in that format again this year, but that's just a sense of what was done last year for it. So in terms of what the program looks like on site, this is, as I mentioned before, it's a cohort situation and it's intensive language study. So 20 hours of language classes a week, in addition to cultural activities and excursions that are meant to introduce you to the larger culture and society of the place that you're going to be a part of here as well. And so this is a program that's really very much about intensive language study. This is not the sort of program where it's expected or encouraged that you are going to be engaging in other sorts of activities. So don't go into this with the expectation that you're going to be able to do extensive amount of volunteering or to have an internship on the side or to conduct kind of personal research. You will have free time, but the expectation is that if you receive and accept this scholarship, you will attend all the language classes, you will participate in all of the cultural programming, anything else that goes with it there. So just to be clear kind of what it is that you're signing up for here. And another key thing to keep in mind is that with this program, you're applying to a language, not necessarily to a country. For whatever language you're interested in, you can go on the CLS websites, which we'll share later, and you can see the locations that they have. For some languages, there is only one location, and so you know that if you get it for, I'm trying to think of one that only has one location, Japanese, then you're going to be in a location, the one location that they offer that in. I know, for example, Russian, the language I'm most familiar with, in the past, they've had locations in Russia, in Latvia, and in Kyrgyzstan. So if that was the language that you were interested in, then you would not have a say in which one of those places you would be placed in, because you're just going to study the language, not necessarily the location. So that's something to keep in mind as well, too. Also, CLS has a language policy that they ask everybody who participates to agree to, which is that you are going to the best of your ability, speak just that language when you're with your cohort, when you're doing your language study, when you're in cultural exchange and things there. And that's a way to make sure that you are immersing yourself as much as possible, and trying to push yourself to make gains in the language and to find ways to use it too. And so that's another part of it as well. I don't, understandably, and I don't think you would want going abroad in a situation to just end up speaking in English with people from other institutions in the United States. But there is, since it is cohort based, since you're going to be with other people from the US, this is a policy that they have to try to push back against that possibility and that temptation to slip back into the language that you would be more comfortable in. Living situations vary sometimes by program. In most cases, you're living with a host family. Some situations, it may be more like a dorm at a university, but that's kind of what that is going to look like. And it will be arranged, and the program that you're applying to will provide information on that. So you're not going to have to make your own housing plans or something there. And you'll also have a language partner, like a native speaker, who can help you as well too. It's a way to make sure that everyone is connected, and again, that you have somebody to be able to practice the language that you're studying with there. So this is kind of what the program is supposed to look like in practice. Are there questions about this? I already mentioned some of this, so we can just kind of go over this quickly. But again, the people in your cohort are going to come from all sorts of different backgrounds and levels of experience, different types of institutions, different identities. And so that's a positive. You'll get a chance to not just to meet interesting people in the country that you're going to, but also from the US and from different kinds of institutions. And again, this is one of the things that the CLS is going to ask you about when you're applying with the applications, is about how you are going to be able to adapt to this kind of situation. How good are you at interacting with people from a wide variety of backgrounds, from different levels of experience with a language or with a culture. Since it is a cohort, since there are going to be a lot of different people with different languages there, that group dynamic, that ability to function well and get along with other people, and handle the sort of inevitable interpersonal and personality kind of differences that come with that is something that they want to see, and that you'll actually be asked about in various ways with some of the essay questions there. So something to keep in mind as well too, that this is a group program, and CLS is aware of what that means in terms of kind of the interpersonal dynamics, and wants to make sure that the people who are applying for that understand that and think that they would be able to be successful in that kind of an environment. Questions about this? So who is CLS for? Everybody with the requisite interest in the language and necessary background for the certain things there. But again, this is a program that's for all academic disciplines, from all sorts of different kinds of institutions. And for people who are motivated, who are independent and want to take initiative in language study, and who see this language as playing a role in their future trajectory in some form there. So that's, again, one of the things with the statement of grant purpose that you're going to end up be writing about, that you're going to need to be able to articulate. So not just, I want to learn Punjabi because it sounds fun, or I, hate living in my hometown over the summer. I would do anything to spend 10 weeks somewhere else. Keep that reason in your heart. What you say on the page is going to be about how this is important to where you see yourself going academically, professionally, and so forth as well. So obviously we have a lot of motivations for why we want to do things, and it's great if this is, this is a great opportunity to learn a language, to travel, but making sure that you're making a case that learning this language and having this experience is important, and that you're going to carry it forward in some way is a key part of making a strong application for this program. So we've already kind of touched on this as well too, but what are you going to do? You're going to essentially get an academic year's worth of language instruction. You will receive a oral proficiency. I can't remember what the I stands for. It's a form of language assessment through what is it, the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages, the ACCLF scale, that will demonstrate the gains that you made. So if you do come back and and you need to demonstrate that to test to show that you can go into a higher level of language. If you're planning on continuing study, for example, and you're going to skip from the second to fourth year Japanese, then this certificate would demonstrate your proficiency and the level that you were certified at there. So again, if you're thinking about the credit that you're applying for, whether you want that to show up on your transcript or whether it's just enough to be able to enroll at a higher level than you would have normally been able to, you will have documentation that shows the gains that you made in the language. And there are a lot of advantages to studying in another country and learning another language in terms of being a desirable job candidate. And so this is an opportunity to gain those experiences, demonstrate that initiative and independence, and also to build relationships. Well, I said before that this is not the sort of program to go on if you're planning on doing independent research or volunteering things there. This could be the place, though, where you might make some of those initial connections if you did want to do that. Maybe through another program like Fulbright later on, maybe just in terms of what you're hoping to do professionally. So this can be a stepping stone to that next goal, just in terms of getting connected to people and resources within that country there. So it does have application in that respect as well. You'll be part of a network of alumni through this program too. And one benefit of this for anyone who might be interested in considering employment in the federal government is that alumni of the program receive this status that's called non-competitive eligibility, which essentially means that within the giant labyrinthine process of applying for federal jobs, you get an added bonus for having done that. So you get some preferential treatment in a certain jobs that you're applying for it. And so you'll get a certificate that designates that status. And so if you did want to apply for a federal job, say with the State Department or USAID or some other agency where, for any agency, but particularly something with international focus, this would be beneficial as well. So depending on your career interests, if that's something that you're thinking about, or at least an option that you want to keep open, that's another benefit, a tangible benefit that comes from having gone through this program as well. Questions about this? All right, so what does the application look like? At the moment, the portal has not opened. CLS is running behind this year. They are telling us early October is when it should be up. They have at least told advisors, though, that the deadline will be November 16th. And they have told us that the application is going to be largely the same as it was last year and that all of the essay prompts will be identical. So even though you can't actually start inputting information into the online portal right now, you can start on your application materials. You can go and see what last year's application looks like, and I'll give you some more resources about that a little bit later. You can start working on your 4 short answer essays and personal statements, knowing that the deadline is coming up on November 16th. And so you'll be applying for just one language. As I mentioned before, you're applying for a language, not a specific country or specific site. In addition to the essays that we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment here, you'll need unofficial transcripts and 1 recommendation to be submitted by a faculty member. Yes?
Does the recommendation have to be from a faculty member of the university?
Do they say that? I feel like they say that they strongly encourage.
This is a good question because they used to ask for 2.
Okay.
Now that they only ask for 1, I don't know if they've mandated that. I would recommend it, but when they had 2, the advice we gave was usually like a faculty member who can talk about your language learning ability, and then the other one could potentially be someone who knows you and like how you interact with other people in unfamiliar situations. Now they've gone down to 1. It gets a little more complicated to say which of those is more important. They're kind of both key pieces of this. So we can try and find out. We can talk more individually about what your options might be to figure out what would be a good fit.
Okay.
But I don't think in our most recent webinar with them, they did not say that it had to be a faculty member.
Okay, gotcha.
They also just didn't say much about it.
I'm like first semester freshman, so like I don't know a ton of my teachers that well.
Yeah.
So like I might be hard to find someone.
And it's good to know just kind of what the purpose of the program is, though, because whoever that recommender is, you'll want to have a conversation about why you're asking for that letter and what you're hoping that they're going to be able to speak to. And so knowing that this is about both academic aptitude for language study, but also about leadership and resilience and interpersonal skills there, thinking about somebody who might be able to speak to that, and making that explicit and saying that, that being able to talk about that in the letter is going to be an important part of that. So do keep that in mind. That's just good advice for any sort of fellowship to apply for, to make sure that whoever you're asking to recommend you understands what the program is like and can speak to the different aspects that you're going to be evaluated on. So the essay questions that you're going to be asked, let's talk a little bit about the ones that you're going to have to address here. And again, we will give you access to a Blackboard space that we have where a copy of last year's application is uploaded. You can also find this on the CLS website. We have some additional resources as well too here. But the 4 short essay prompts of 200 to 300 words are on the topic of resilience, on preparation for CLS, on citizen diplomacy, and on commitment to language study. And so you're going to be asked questions about how does this program and learning the language you're applying for contribute to your future career goals? So why should they give you money to learn this language? This is where you're going to show this isn't just a chance to get out of the US for a few weeks, but that you're actually going to keep working and using this language in some form in the near term, and then hopefully longer term as well too. As you're talking about your preparation, your resilience, your citizen diplomacy, you're going to be asked to talk about specific interests, experiences, or background that would make you a strong applicant for this, and that would show that you would be successful in this kind of intensive environment where you're going to be studying a language, which 20 hours a week is a lot of time to be studying a language. Like, it's the sort of thing that kind of makes your head want to explode. I was living in Russia and I was doing like a couple hours of intensive language study outside of the work that I was doing there, and that felt like a lot. So showing that you understand what the program is going to be like and you're going in with realistic expectations and can demonstrate that you have that kind of resilience to be able to deal with that on top of the cohort dynamics and things like that is going to be important as well too. Jen.
Yeah, let me, the computer has stuff on CLS's website, so for recommendation letters.
Yes, we got the answer right now.
So it does say that they want someone who can speak to your academic performance, preferably at the university level, who can speak to your suitability for the program. So they don't exactly say it should be a professor, but they kind of say it should be a professor.
Okay.
There's also in the FAQ a question about, I'm a freshman in college and the fall semester just started, like, who do I ask? And they still suggest if you've got someone at the university level, it could be a faculty member you have now, if you talk with your academic advisor, if you're in a U101 class like that, because they're used to seeing other college students and can speak to you in contact with other college students, that's the preference.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
This is a great time to start showing up for office hours for a faculty member as well. So if someone doesn't know you, I mean, you've got till November 16th, so this is a chance to introduce yourself. Yeah.
So when you ask for that recommendation letter, is it going to be sent to the website and I never see it, or will they be
Right.
sent to me and I upload it?
No,
No,
you
it'll be-
register them in the system, it'll take out an automatic email to them to say, so-and-so's asked for a letter, here's how you upload it, so you will never see it.
Is the recommendation due on the same day as the application?
Is it okay? So I felt like in the past it was a couple days later.
Oh, it might be 2 days later, tell them it's the same day.
So yeah, as far as we know, that information has not been shared with us. We just know that the 16th is the deadline. So
That is also the only time I tell students it's okay to lie to faculty, just tell them it's earlier deadline.
and as I said, these are the particular prompts that you're going to get, and you can see the exact wording if you look up the application that we have on Blackboard and that you can find among the resources that CLS has on their website. So resilience, your ability to adapt to a new environment, and strategies that you've learned from it. So these essays are a lot about kind of showing things that you've done already. This is not the kind of application where you're just going to make kind of broad statements about how you will do these things. You need to show that you've done this by giving an example of a time when you've demonstrated resilience and adaptability, and then explaining what you learned from that experience and why that is going to be useful and relevant to what you understand this program to be like. Preparation for the program is about anticipated challenges and strategies for dealing with it. So in addition to talking about what makes you prepared in terms of like language level, also, again, showing that you understand what's going to be expected of you and that you have ways of being able to handle that. Citizen diplomacy, this is also about cultural exchange here. And so how your experience and your perspective will contribute to the program. So what is it about you that makes you a good potential cultural diplomat? And also how you are going to be doing that and what that's going to look like when you return as well too, to be part of this exchange of cultures that goes with it. Commitment to language study is when you're talking about your interest and why you want to learn this language, and also where you're going to talk about what you're going to do beyond the CLS program. What are your future plans, either for study or for using it, whatever that might be in your particular situation. And then in addition to these 4 short prompts, there's a separate 500-word statement of purpose where you'll talk about how this contributes to your academic and professional goals, why this is the right thing for you to be doing at this time in your academic career as well. So not just that learning this language or having this experience is useful to you, but that this is coming at the right time and you can make an argument for, this is the summer that I should be doing it for X, Y, and Z. And essentially what this kind of boils down to is why should CLS invest in you in particular, given the sort of goals that the program has about making sure that the United States has educated population of people with skills and languages that the government has seen as important to national economic security, other sorts of interests there. So that is what you're going to be asked about. In the Blackboard space that we have that you will all be added to for having come to this workshop, we have an application essay worksheet that just takes the text of the prompts from the CLS, and then we have some questions to kind of get you thinking about how you would address that and some space for drafting there. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that, to do some brainstorming as you're thinking about how you want to answer these questions. And again, you can see the exact wording from CLS on that application as well. Yeah.
Is this folder in Blackboard something that we all already have access to?
Not yet. This is something we add people to. It's in National Fellowships Advising, and you'll be getting an email later this week with some next steps for having gone to this workshop that will give you information on how to access that. We need to add you to that, and we need to add you to our CLS folder. That is also going to have access to some sample applications of previous winners from U of SC. So you'll get a chance to see how other people in your same situation have answered these prompts and get a sense of what a successful way of addressing them looks like, and so you can use that to inform how you want to organize your ideas and talk about your experiences as well too. So we're happy to make those resources available to help you make your strongest case for this particular opportunity. So what could you do to get started? I just mentioned that we will send you some of the information there. You can also meet with us in national fellowships. You can make appointments through Navigate. If you're an undergraduate, we're under involvement and engagement. We offer in-person and an online appointments. Our office is located on the 3rd floor of Desaussure College over on the Horseshoe. And again, we're also available virtually. If you're a graduate student, you can sign up for a meeting with me directly through our website has a link to my scheduling there as well too. We also have some fellowship peer mentors. These are current students here who have had CLS awards and who have applied for it. Unfortunately, neither of our 2 current individuals who had this award were able to make it today, but they are available as well. And you can reach out to them and schedule a meeting. You can meet them and talk about it over coffee and we'll pay for it. You can send them an email. That's another way if you want to if you want to hear from somebody who's still a student right now who's done this very recently. And as I said, we'll give you access to Blackboard. The CLS website has a lot of resources as well too. They have some taped webinars. They will be holding some sessions in the coming weeks as well too. So you can look on CLS and they have a lot of information. They have an FAQ page. Again, there's a page for each of the individual languages. So I would definitely tell you that you need to start there. See what it is that they're saying about that particular language, see the locations and things that they're going to host that program on there. And then do some reflection about how this language or this culture might fit in with your future plans too. And again, the worksheet that we have available on Blackboard is one way to kind of start thinking about that in response to kind of essays, but it's just good to think in general about what made you come to this workshop. You know, what is it that initially piqued your interest? Get curious about that impulse there and think about how you would explain why you think it would be important for you to be able to study this language and have this intercultural experience. So those are some things to get started here. Yeah.
Do you happen to know what languages those CLS students studied?
One was Punjabi. What was Kendall? Okay. Yeah. So Russian and Punjabi. And we have sample applications from other languages as well too that are available on Blackboard. Other questions here? Is that a question for me?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. That's fine. So the timeline, as I mentioned, the application hasn't opened officially yet. The deadline will be the 16th. In the past, it's been at 8 p.m. Eastern. They have not told us a specific time. So if you're at all concerned, tell yourself the deadline is the 15th, and you don't need to worry about a time zone snafu or something. In the past as well, the recommendation deadline has been a couple days later. We have not been told that date yet, so it's perfectly fine to just tell your recommenders it needs to be in by the 16th. I assume that whatever auto-generated invitation to submit a recommendation will provide information about what the deadline will be, so your recommender will know that. Semifinalists are notified in late January, and then finalists are notified in March, at least in previous years. Programs generally begin at the start of June. CLS does say that sometimes they can start as late May, and sometimes they can go as late as into the third week of August. The dates will be different depending on the particular site there, but that's just something kind of in general to keep in mind as well too. And again, the expectation is that if you get this, in order to participate, you need to go to the orientation in Washington, D.C. Beforehand as well. So keep that in mind as you're making plans for the summer to make sure that you'll be able to participate in the program fully. Yes.
So if let's just say by the time Spark, I managed to do it my freshman year, would I still be able to continue applying and try doing it again and again? Or
You can do it twice.
Okay.
Yes, so you can keep applying if you don't get it. I don't believe there's any limits to the number of times you can apply, but you can only do it twice. And it could be in the same language. It could also be in a different language. Although if it is for a different language, they would want to see you demonstrate that you still have a commitment to the initial language in some way. So yes, but that is true. And we have had one of our FPMs has actually done the Punjabi program twice. So that is something that you can do. So if you're a freshman and you just want to do this at some point, apply now. If you get it, that's awesome. If not, then I would encourage you to apply again next year. And if you do get it and want to keep studying the language, you have the opportunity to apply at least one more time.
Boring.
So come back in a couple of weeks when we talk about the Boren Award. Yes.
Suppose the program ends after the first day of classes. Is this school flexible in that regard?
I don't think there's like a university level policy. I would imagine that people would be understanding if you're doing an academically focused program like this. So I don't think there's any official kind of policy about that. But my general sense is that most programs are done prior to when U of SC typically starts.
They try, and I think that they semesters when they're looking at applying to a program, if there's enough flexibility in that program. So like for Mandarin, there might be some programs that start in late May and end in early August, and there might be other programs that start in June and go to the end of August. Depending on your language level and things, like I just don't know how all the calculus that goes into how they choose that. So I can't guarantee it, but I don't think we've had a lot of students have trouble getting back in time. I don't remember hearing that as a regular problem.
I already mentioned ways to get in touch. Again, that's the link if you're a graduate student. Otherwise, undergraduates can sign up through Navigate under involvement and engagements. And we are happy to look over your applications while you're working on them as well. That's one of the services our office provides. So if you want feedback on the drafts of your essays, we are happy to go over multiple rounds of that if you want. You can make appointments to do that. So I encourage you to do that because it is useful to get feedback, because this will be read by people from various backgrounds, not necessarily with familiarity in the target language that you're going for as well too. So it's always helpful to get feedback from multiple perspectives as well. And that's one of the things that we're able to offer you too. So if you're interested in applying, we definitely encourage you to run a draft by one of the lovely people in our office here.
I will say I've been on the national screening panel for CLS 50 times, both first round and second round. I have zero critical language background. I don't speak any of these languages. But it's very interesting to see that and see how students are presenting themselves and what's really, and hearing from CLS what's really important to them. And they're very transparent. Like all of this stuff, this presentation, is from them. They're not hiding how they're choosing candidates. So they're very serious about your commitment and interest in the language, your long-term plans on using it. The one thing I would emphasize or re-emphasize from what Matt has said is they're not kidding about the intensity of that program, right? So beyond just the language skills, they want to know that you're going to be okay in a program that is so heavily focused on lots of class time with the language, that language pledge where you're not speaking English. So even if you are a brand new, never spoken that language before, I think for that case, they give you like a 2-week grace period, and then you have to only speak that language. So the specific examples that you can pull and put in your application that show the reader that you understand what that is and have some, even if you don't necessarily have experience with dealing with things like that, have some ideas for how you might cope with it. Because it is, you're going to some places that are very different from the US, living with people from all over the US, living with people from a different country, and that is a stressful situation in both a positive and negative way. So that would be my insight from having read a lot of these. The more concrete examples you have that you really thought about that, the stronger your application will be.
All right, any further questions? I know you already asked a lot of great questions that I hope have clarified things here, but any further questions about applying for this opportunity? Yes.
Is there any preference for people who haven't been out of the country before?
I don't believe so.
For people who haven't left the country before?
Not a preference, but also not a detraction.
Yeah, so if you have overseas experience, that could be one of the examples there, but it's possible to travel and to not have very immersive cultural experiences as well. So just having been, taken a bus tour of London or something doesn't make you well qualified inherently for this program. So don't worry if you haven't had that kind of experience. Thank you. Any other questions? If not, feel free to reach out to us if questions arise or to make an appointment there. We have some awesome stickers for national fellowships, should you want to choose one and add it. All right. We've already got some advertising going on there. So the rest of you can join in too if you want. We have flyers about our office as well. Otherwise, thank you for coming. I really hope that you all apply for this. It's a great opportunity and good luck.
When did you say access to the Blackboard report be granted again?
By the end of the week, it should be.
I'll say Monday.
All right. Yeah, that's cool.
And you can send us an email if you can't access it or if we didn't get that information there, because it is our goal that you have that soon.
All right.
I'll see you. I'll see you.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yes, you look familiar.
Yes.
You look back. Welcome back.
I'll probably schedule something soon.
Good, good.
Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Thanks for coming.